It's so weird how much people do so much work for the show. All the stuff they're saying is happening wasn't in it.
As if the show is not the responsible for doing the work.
That's Star Wars now. I mean, they conflate so much of the EU which doesn't exist in Disney Star Wars. Okay, they got rid of all of it.
They pointed out that doesn't exist when people were trying to cite it for Ki-Adi-Mundi's age.
They love decanonizing all of it and then just randomly using some of it. They love just taking bits out that they want.
This does not belong to the Acolyte. Like, meaningful deconstruction, observations, potential criticisms of the Jedi, and more compelling arguments trying to be made in terms of, like, understanding the nature of the Sith, or, like, characters creating their own arguments that they believe are, like, internally logical for it. That exists in other stories, many of which are no longer canon, of course, because thanks to Disney. It's not stuff that is present in this show. Like, all of the stuff that you do after you've watched it, and you know that it's something that the writers have said in interviews or whatever, like writers, directors, and actors, and that it's something that is clear that they're attempting to explore that idea, but not doing it very well. When you go off and have your own conversations on streams and stuff, where you start adding all this stuff in, you have to understand that this is not part of the show that you're talking about. Yep. This is stuff that you've added, but you're using it to complement the show when it's not present. The show doesn't make arguments.
You gotta have a moment of thinking about if all the information you got was from interviews, from promotional material, and then your own interests, and then you're using it to say it's what the show's got. Like, you're the ultimate sort of mark for the show.
I mean, it's essentially...
They got you.
You know, we've talked about it before. It's interesting to... I mean, it seems to not work as well anymore. But, like, you notice it with Marvel projects. I'm going to sound like a broken record on this, but I do find it fascinating. That, like, usually a Marvel project will lead with Marvel essentially setting the agenda for what that project's going to be. So you remember that with Secret Invasion, it's gritty, it's grounded. And then you started seeing that in a lot of, like, reviews. Oh, it's gritty and grounded and everything. And then the Marvels, it's fun, it's a fun time. And then you see reviews like, yeah, it's such a fun movie, it's a fun time. These sorts of,
like, they copy and paste just what they said in the beginning of the advertisement. And there's like, let's do this. This is my review. It is quirky and funny.
Well, the Secret Invasion one was crazy because by the time we got to the last episode, someone was goofy shit in all of the MCU.
Yeah, and yet they tried to market it as being gritty. But, like, at the end of the day, none of these things mean anything. Like, it's just badly written. But, like, it's worth recognizing how the agenda is being essentially set for what you're going to be focusing on, and not just going along with it because they said that that's what it's about. They have to work harder than that. If they want their story to be, like, a gritty, grounded story that makes you think about, like, the current zeitgeist or whatever, then that's something that they need to do for themselves. If it's going to be fun, it should be fun self-evidently, not something that needs to be told to you constantly.
Right.
And in this case, the idea that this is going to be deconstructing the Jedi, when thus far it's just been completely hapless and stupid. The idea that the show should get any credit for it is just ridiculous.
Thing to come out of Star Wars in a little while is like the ethics involved in who can use the Force and who can't, and blah 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 blah. And
there is no exploration of ethics.
No,
that's the thing.
It doesn't exist.
So present.
Tell me 3 differences between the Jedi and the cult. Just like tell me 3. Just to give me 3 differences that aren't just purely aesthetic, right? Tell me anything. Tell me the biggest difference between the two, other than, you know, like why should one have it over the other? Like,
well, give me one example. Give me one example in the show where they debate the ethics of using the Force. No, they just state, like, they don't let us use it. They're dicks.
There's nothing to explore. You'd have to just make stuff up. There's nothing in the show. There are no lines you could point to that are substantive in any way. There's not there's no dinner scene. There's no scene where they go back and forth and each give their perspective. It's just
where Soul sits down with Osha and breaks down, like, hey, this is why the Jedi feel this way about the Force.
Here's
like
what we think.
Here's what we think.
Our general philosophy.
Someone said RLM never said it was good. They've described things in the show that aren't in it, and if they were in it, it could very well be an interesting, good show. That's the issue. A lot of people are inventing shit that's in this show because it's so awful.
Yeah.
But like
they haven't said it's bad either. They've literally just said there's things that work for them.
Yeah.
In this, and that's their prerogative.
Besides,
absolutely.
I'm less interested in the, broad statement. I'm more interested in the working, and the working is bothering me so much. Like, man, there's such an interesting approach to do this, and it's like, what scenes are you referring to? What do you think you're talking about? Give me a line.
If we're headed towards episode 6, and if we're still waiting for one effing thing to work in this show, by the way, things should be working by now. Like, some things should be working, and they're not.